Hey, everybody, welcome to View from the Top podcast, where we help growth minded men who desire momentum in their business, their family, their faith, and their finances get through the valleys and up the mountain to their very own view from the top. We're so glad you're listening in with us today. My name is Wally, and I've got Big A. Big A, how's it going today, buddy?
Oh, doing good. No complaints on this end. It's bright and early today. I'm excited. It's a beautiful day in Nashville. Hopefully, it's beautiful where all of our listeners are today.
Springtime, getting into summer.
Love it.
I love that
Love it.
green, fresh smell. It's good, good.
You know, the lake is calling my name, Wally. You know that. So in the future, we've got to do these at a different time than now because I need to be thinking out on the water. I think clearly when I'm on the water. So
Yeah, well,
it's good though, man. Doing good. You had a good week?
Good. Yeah, it's been a good week. It's had some challenges. We've got some challenges coming up here this next week, like everybody else.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, we're moving forward and keeping that lines of communication open, both with my bride and in the business, and things are good, man. Things are
Hey,
good.
I need some feedback from you. Monday
Yeah.
night, Robin and I were invited to sit on a marriage panel. And we've done this numbers of times. You know, I guess these young people want to hear from old codgers, but Robin and I celebrate next month 43 years of marriage. And
Oh,
so,
congrats. That's great.
yeah, thank you. Most of it's been good. We've had our challenges, but
Sure.
these young couples every year invite about 6 or 8 couples that have been married 30 plus years. And we have an open dialogue for young couples that have been married 3 years or less. And so there's probably 20, 25 young couples or people, probably a dozen couples in the room. And I think to start it, they're afraid to ask questions out loud. So they write it on a piece of paper and they put it in a hat. They draw the questions out. So here's my question. So y'all get the idea of what we did. So we just answer questions. And so we get round to normal stuff, you know, we're talking about all kinds of stuff. And then we get to the hot button, you know, it's always the sex talk, right? It's always like, hey, how do you keep the flame going? You get married, things start to slow down. It's like, and so they wade into the water very gently, right? They do this every year because they're embarrassed. They're like blushing. They're like, hey, I'm not even sure
Sure.
old people even know about sex anymore. But if you do know anything, how do you deal with some things? And so here's my question. Uh, One of the couples really kind of went all in. And I'm not going to get into what they said necessarily, but here's my dilemma. It made me blush a little bit. And it's not easy to make me blush, right? And you know, you've been around me a long time. And Robin and I got home afterwards and we kind of broke down the night and we talked about it. She said, hey, when such and such said this, what'd you think? And I was like, I didn't appreciate it. And she said, I didn't appreciate it either. And she said, I thought it was a little risque, right? For being in a setting like that with couples that we don't know. And so, yeah, I want to break down just for a minute what's appropriate, what's proper, what's improper, inappropriate. Have you ever thought about that? Have you ever been in a situation to where, like, we got this sensitive topic, right? And how do we go there?
Yeah, Simon and I had an experience a little bit like it wasn't the same on the sex idea, a sex topic, but it was just really intimately into our marriage and our lives. We did that with a young college and career. They were all single; they weren't even married,
Oh, wow.
and yeah, and so we didn't dive into the sex topic, but there was some other topics that we dove really deep on, and it was probably I don't know 30 people, 30 singles in the room, and you know me well enough by now that when you ask the question, like frankly, you're probably going to think that my response is opposite of yours. And you're right. Like my
Yeah.
response
Sure.
is like, now here's the difference. I would say that if you're standing up on a stage, you guys said there was, 30 people in the room.
Right, right.
If you're standing up on a stage and there's 1,000 people in the room and that comes up by surprise, do you think that's what it was? Do you think that it was a surprise thing? You weren't expecting that type of question, so you hadn't prepared, do you think,
No,
versus it
no, I
was
don't.
inappropriate?
I don't at all. That's not it at all for me.
Mm.
I wasn't surprised. We do this every year, so I'm not surprised at what we talked about, and that's a real part. Let's don't make this dirty or wrong. This is
Yeah,
a great topic.
this is marriage. This is awesome.
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the depth, the details, very descriptive. in a in a gender neutral setting. It's not just all guys or all girls, like we're
Mhm.
mixed couples. I guess I'm from the old school, right? It's like I guess I am, and quite honestly, it doesn't bother me that I'm from the old school. But I
That's
think
right.
there's a level of respect, and here's why it feels a little bit awkward to me. You don't know what that couple's dealing with. You don't know anything about their history. You don't know anything about abuse in their families, that we really could be touching a sensitive spot by being so descriptive.
Mm.
And so I think in generalities, it's okay to broach broader topics, but when you get into the intricate details, I think we're treading on thin ice there in a mixed environment. With guys, I'm totally good. I can go there all day long. I can talk details deep as you want to go, right? Because guys think like guys and ladies think like ladies. And I'm probably not qualified, first of all, to use the language that they would receive appropriately. And I could be very offensive. And because the things I say to guys would be offensive to ladies. And so I'm just not confident, I guess, or comfortable with broaching very detailed subjects of that nature in that room. So
Yeah, and maybe that's it. Maybe it's just the confidence,
yeah,
comfortable level on your part. I know for me, you told me a little bit more about what the topic was, and
sure.
so I have a little bit more context than what we're people listening in today, but I I wouldn't have an issue with that personally. Now,
Yeah,
Sonia may have a different opinion.
yeah.
I don't think so. Here's the thing. This is what it ultimately comes down to for me. I'm tired. I just get tired of people not talking about stuff. And where else are these couples going to hear it from? If they go to one other couple for mentorship and they listen to that one couple, they're only getting that couple's perspective.
Hmm.
They don't have a wider range. So you may get a panel of 5 or 6 couples up on stage or in an environment like that where there's, 12 other couples listening in. There's going to be, even as believers, even in church, there's going to be differences of opinion on that specific topic amongst those 5 or 6 couples that have been married 30 plus years up there on stage. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Hmm.
But it gives, I think, opening up those types of topics and getting some of those details in there, I think it opens up opportunities for conversation. These are adults. Like, so, you know, they should be able to learn how to have these conversations.
Yeah.
And even if I hear what you're saying, like you might say something that's offensive, and I don't know if you would in that setting. I don't know if you would actually say something that was offensive. You're a smart guy. Like, I don't know if you would, but I'm on the other side of that. So I
Yeah.
just am. Yeah. I would have loved to have been there actually. I think it would have been amazing.
Yeah, it was a great talk. I just think that we went a little far. I just think that it was, and that was Robin's perspective too. It
Yeah,
was
sure.
like, yeah, this went a little further, a little too descriptive, a little too graphic, um, a little too much information. And her point was, and I tend to agree, they're young couples. They'll figure out most of this on their own. They don't need to hear graphic details. Most of this
Mhm.
is pretty natural. You're going to figure out most of this on your own anyway. So,
Yeah. Well, I hate to say this. I know we're on this podcast, and I feel like by disagreeing with you, I'm disagreeing with your wife as well. And that's hard, man. I don't want to like, hey, I want to agree with you guys. But here's the thing.
it's iron sharpening iron, is what it is.
Here's the
That's
thing though,
okay.
man. Like, there is no better place for those couples
Sure.
when you say they're going to figure it out on their own. Most
Yeah.
don't. I'm just telling you, a
Mm,
lot don't.
mm,
They just don't. They don't have the conversations
yeah.
because it's embarrassing. They didn't grow up in an environment where it was
Sure.
talked about.
That
And
could be
so,
part of mine too, because I grew up in an environment that was taboo. We didn't discuss anything, right? My
yeah.
older brother taught me everything that I knew,
Woo.
and then I had to figure out a lot of truth, to your point,
Yeah.
later. And so, yeah, I think it's good for us to talk about. So hopefully this has generated a little bit of interest in you going back with your spouse and having these deep conversations, to be sure that you don't miss something. And
That's a
just
good
be
word.
mindful when you're in environments, to be respectful. And yeah, let's think through it. So it's okay. That's the reason we riff on these things, right? Is
That's
everybody's
right.
got different opinions. And so it just
That's
makes
good
us
stuff.
think. our hope today is to help you think a little deeper about some of the situations, the environments you're in.
Yeah,
So
that's good. That's good. Hey, we've got a guest with us today, Mark Nichols, man. What a good dude. I know that. Um, well, go ahead and tell us about. I mean, you've got a
well,
fishing relationship. You got
you
all
know
that.
what
Like
though, when you
you know
said
more
he's a
about Mark.
I
I know
know,
one thing I appreciate about Mark, and that's
yeah,
like his frankness. I think
yeah,
you call it
yeah.
candor, is what you
Yeah, yeah,
call it.
Mark's, yeah, he's straight up dude. I mean, he'll shoot you straight, but he does it in a loving way. Like you don't feel loved when he says it, but then you get to know his heart, and the dude loves you, and he'll tell you straight up. You don't have to wonder where you're at with him. But when you said he's a good dude, it made me think of something. We're competitive. He and I are in fishing, and he lives on a private lake, and so I go up there every year and spend 2 or 3 days with him, and we go out and fish. And I hate to admit this publicly, but it's true. He has spanked my hind end every year. And I pride myself in being a good fisherman. Like I tournament fish for 35 years, right? We won a lot of tournaments. And it pisses me off so bad with a guy I see every week that I go up there and he spanks me every time I go up there. I always say, well, it's your home lake. You
He's got
should.
home lake advantage. He does have that.
He
There is some
does.
truth
He
to that.
does. He doesn't claim. He claims he only fishes when I come up there. I don't believe him. But anyway,
He even tells us on the interview. He shares with us, what kind of lure he uses. So I'll leave that up as a
I
mystery when
know.
you get in there. Don't say it. Like he'll tell us on the
Yeah,
interview. But
I got another guy in ISI that's in my corner. He's giving me tips because this guy fished professionally, and so he's giving me tips. And Mark feels ganged up on now. You know what though, man? What we're talking about today is the experience he's got as a team builder. Man, what an incredible leader this guy is.
mm,
And I think one of the things I like, even as much or more than his candor, is his ability to cast vision. I mean, the guy can see it, 32 years as an owner operator with Chick-fil-A, almost 40 years at the company.
it's a
He's
big
one of the
deal.
OGs at
That's a big
Chick-fil-A.
deal. That's a big deal.
Yeah, it's a big deal. And he's got a phenomenal business and he's got a great heart. So, hey, listen to the end. I think you're going to enjoy it. Mark teaches us a lot. Hope you enjoyed today's episode.
All right, let's get Mark in here.
Well, man, I'm pretty fired up today. Got one of my fishing buddies on with me, Mark Nichols. Man, Mark, what a pleasure it is to have you, man. I've gotten to know you. I'm going to spring a surprise on you that you're not even aware of yourself. Do you realize that today is your 5-year anniversary in Iron Sharpens Iron Mastermind? Like I look up your application and 5 years ago today you joined. I thought that was pretty cool. And here you are on the podcast.
Yeah.
Well, listen, you're a master team builder, no question about it. I'm probably going to get some of these years and dates wrong, but you're nearing like 40 years or something crazy with Chick-fil-A. The guys all really respect you and look up to you. You're an incredible leader. You've presented at our live events before, and you're one of the top favorites. They keep asking for you back because you're just such an incredible leader. But you're also a vision caster, and that's one of the things that I really like about you. You're a huge encourager. I've had the blessing of being able to come to your place there and hang out with you for the weekends and fish. And I want to talk about that just for a second because if you were as good a fisherman as you are a team leader and a master leader of your business, you might be able to beat me. But I don't know if you've got any response to that. But we have. Actually, the truth, I got to go ahead and say it. Mark has beat me 3 times on his home lake, and I'm embarrassed to admit it. But man, it's so good to have you today, Mark. Welcome to View from the Top podcast.
Thank you, Big A. And man, I'm happy to be here. It's been a great 5 years. I knew 5 years was in around this period of time at some point, but I knew it's been about 5 years. And when I joined, I just decided, and this is kind of why I joined, just putting it out there, is that I read a lot of books, been to a lot of conferences, had some personal coaching, all this stuff we do as business leaders to better ourselves and develop ourselves. And finally, I just decided, I've seen enough of this stuff. I'm going to keep reading. I'm going to keep going to conferences. I'm going to keep doing some of that. But I really wanted to start learning from other men. I really wanted to read the lives of other men and have that input in my life. And that's why I joined ISI. I didn't join it for the network. I didn't join it for, accountability. All these things are good things, and men have different reasons for joining. My
Sure.
reason for joining was I wanted to read the lives of men, and I needed that exposure in my life. And it's been a huge, huge positive for me. So glad that I'm here on my 5th year anniversary.
Well,
Looking forward to you coming back down. It's about this time of
cool.
year where I usually spank your hiney on the lake out here. But yes, it is my home lake.
I
But
knew you
yes,
were going to get that
I
jab in there.
normally only fish like once a year. This year I fished a few more times. I'm kind of getting into it this year. Last 3 years I fished once a year. It was with you, and I used the same lure the whole time through. So there was some equalizer going on there, even though it was my home lake. But it's been fun. It's been close. I'm sure you're going to catch up and take the lead here soon. So anyway, it's been a good ride.
I don't know. Well, it started out when I came the first time. Mark's got a beautiful home there on the lake, and he's got a beautiful guest bedroom. And spent the night in the guest bedroom. Got up, the final day, and dressed and showered and left, and realized I dropped my pocket knife. And I said, "Man, where's my pocket knife?" And I called Mark, and he went downstairs, and he said, "Yeah." I said, "Big A, you dropped it out. When you were getting dressed. It's here on the floor. I got it for you." He said, "But you got to earn it back." And I'm like, "What?" He goes, "You got to come back and you've got to earn it." And he still got my dead gun pocket knife. It's 3 years and he still got my knife. And I'm going to have to pull out some other lure or something when I'm down there next time. But man, we have so much fun down there. Go out to eat at nice restaurants, sit out by the fire. Mark's a fabulous cook, and we've just developed a great friendship over the years. So thank you, man, for your hospitality. What a great guy you are. But I want you to give a little of your backstory. Tell a little bit about how you got involved in Chick-fil-A and what you're doing there. And because you're such a master team builder, we're going to dive into that a little bit and let you give us some insight on how to build a team. But first, give us a little bit more background.
Absolutely. So, my ride with Chick-fil-A has been um, a really well timed event that was not planned by me. It just happened. You get in and you ride it, and people say, "Hey, be if." Some people claim to be a hardworking C student, right, in high school. Well, I wasn't. I was a lazy C student. So, I had fun and did all that stuff and went through college, but I got into Chick-fil-A when I was young and just kind of rode the wave up. And so I became a franchise owner in 1991. So this is my 32nd year as a franchise owner with Chick-fil-A. But literally started out as a team member when I was 17 years old in 1982, making $3.50 an hour. Worked my way through high school, got married out of high school, worked my way through college, had some opportunities with Chick-fil-A, was going into ministry full time. That was my plan. Kind of got out of college and was waffling on all that and had an opportunity with Chick-fil-A and decided I would jump in and see how it went. And here we are 32 years later, on the ride. And I've operated 6 stores through the years. I have 2 freestanding restaurants now that are very busy. We have about 250 employees and about 28 managers. And I spend like most of my time by far just leading the leadership team and loving on them and going in the restaurants and being a customer basically. So
Mark, there was a real shift for you at what period where you decided really to start working on your business more than working in your business? Take us down that journey. When did you discover that, and how did you discover that that was going to be kind of the catalyst for your future?
you know, the quick service industry is super challenging, fast paced. We see a lot of customers. Matter of fact, we see about 5,000 customers a day now in my 2 restaurants. And so, you know, it'll beat you up. I mean, it'll beat you down. And I remember as I joined as a franchisee in '91 at a really rough store and was able to relocate with Chick-fil-A. You can actually relocate through the deal because they own the asset and we split profits. It's a unique franchise model. And about 2000, in 2000, I opened up my main store in Trussville, Alabama. And that store was a good store, a great store. It still continues to be one of the best stores in the state. And as far as sales volume goes, and it's just been a huge blessing. But I opened it in 2000, and about 2003, I'd been a franchise owner for 12 years, but I'd been with Chick-fil-A at that point for like 19 years, from 1982 to 2003. And I honestly just got really burnt out. I was making great money. Um, a lot of people would say, "Man, you're at the prime of your career and life," and I was probably 37, 38 years old at that point in time. And actually, I was 30, yeah, 30, 38. And I got tired of coming in every day and dealing with the same minutia over and over again. And I just said, I've got to do something different. If I'm going to be in this for the long haul and run a marathon versus a sprint, I've got to redefine me and who I'm at, who I am, and what I love to do and what is important to me, what I'm going to really focus on. So at that time, I really backed off, took some time, and determined what my role would be in the business. And that's where things shifted. When I redefined my role and I communicated that to my team, and then I began developing a team around me to help support my role, that's when my life changed from a business standpoint.
Hey, Mark, what was it for you that, because obviously guys listening to this, not all of them are make that choice. You reach this pivot point, this tipping point, whatever you want to call it, where you're like, hey, I've got to work on my business versus in my business. What was there a catalyst for you? What do you see from, because I'm sure you work with not just Chick-fil-A franchisees, uh, but other business owners that you're connected with and are in your network. Why don't they choose that? Why do they choose to stay in it versus on it from your perspective?
It's a great question, Kevin, and thank you for that. You know, I feel like at that point in the juncture of my business life, I was number one burnout, and number two, I did not see the upside or how to get there. Like when I looked at the future of the business, I couldn't figure out how to
Mm.
get there doing what I was doing and still keeping my sanity and being happy. Really. So I had to figure out, there are businesses that are larger than mine, obviously. There's more successful people than me. They crossed this bridge, they climbed the mountain, they get there. What are they doing differently than me? And what I realized is that, I'm getting sucked into the day-to-day operations so much that I can't see the future. I can't drive the future. I can't be the leader I need to be to the team because I'm in there dealing with management issues every day of my life. And I finally just had to say, I'm going to force my role into a situation where I can lead and drive the business with a vantage point that other people can't see. Almost like a submarine captain. And of course, if I'm you military guys, I may get this wrong. So, don't go crazy, but this is how I view it. You know, the crew can't see what's above the water in the submarine. But the guy looking up the periscope, where's the captain, the senior official, whatever, the leader looks at the periscope, he can see 360 around what's really above the water. And they can trust their equipment and all that. But when he looks in that periscope, he sees he's got to be able to then go back and communicate that to the team and have the team then activate to follow up on his vision, his demands, his commands, his expectation.
Mm.
And at that point in time, I felt like I was in the submarine. Nobody was looking at the periscope. And that's where I said, look, I've got to be the one looking at the periscope. And therefore, I've got to change my role, my focus, and I've got to get to where I do the things I love. Andy Stanley says that, you need to do the things that only you can do in your business. Only do the things that only you can do. Well, I had to define what those were and commit to doing them. And that's what changed for me.
I love how you didn't use this word, but this is how I see what you just said. You weren't willing to accept the status quo. You wanted to figure out what was beyond what your current situation was, because you knew it wasn't going to end well, and I wasn't going to be a happy life for sure. That's great.
Well, we were in such a growth trajectory at that time. Um, Really, it's like going down the interstate. Your foot on the gas at 70 miles an hour, and all of a sudden the car's stalling out, and everybody around you still going 70, and you're going 30. Like you got to figure out what's going on and to keep up. And I knew that our growth trajectory was really strong at Chick-fil-A. And I mean, just to lay it out for you, we've grown year after year after year of 12% growth compounded. We could keep it up with that. I knew I was going to fail. I would fail as a leader, and I would fail my team,
Mm.
and I would fail my business, and I would fail Chick-fil-A corporate, and I fail my family and everything if I didn't change the way I was leading the business. So
So, Mark, when you started evaluating the situation, and now today you have hundreds of employees, I think you said 250 in 2 stores. How did you assess the people that you had to ensure that they had the necessary skills that they needed to run the business? Like, what was the next right step for you? Because there's thousands of people listening right now that are in the very same shoes you were in then, and they're trying to figure out, how do I assess the people around me? So, what did you do next?
Well, looking back on what's, it's kind of like this has been a laboratory test for me on how to create this model. I didn't have a master plan. I've just done the kind of the next right thing along the way. Some things have worked, some things haven't. But when I look back on it, it overall it's been a big success. And so I myself kind of back off and try to learn from that, because I'm just like, wow, how did this work well? What can I do to keep it going in the future? And I have not hired a manager in my business in 23 years. No outside management has been brought in, or leadership. Every one of our 28 leaders have been organically brought in from the bottom up. And as a
Wow.
note, as a side note, most of them are millennials. Matter of fact, either millennials or Gen Z. And you talk to a lot of folks, and they say, "Wow, millennials are useless. How do you get them to work? How do you get anything out of them?" I'm like, "Man, I love them. Like, they have my business depends on about 28 of them." And I think the key to this is we started developing leadership from within early on. Early on. So most of my leaders have been with me 10, 12, 15 years, and they're 30 or 32 or 35. They started when they were 16, 18, 21, and we've grown them up through the process. So we have a term in Chick-fil-A called, I bleed peanut oil. Peanut oil is the oil we use in which to fry the nuggets and the chicken sandwiches. And so we talk about bleeding peanut oil. It just means it's in your blood. The culture's in the blood, the love for the company, the love for what we stand for. Well, we did that by developing them at young ages through the process. We looked for kids that, one, had great work ethic and had high integrity. And when you start focusing on the character piece of people, then their experience in restaurants or in business or even in a job doesn't matter. You get the right person who's moldable, who wants to learn, and then you start working with them and you realize they're soaking in like a sponge. Some of these people can be great team members. Some can be great team leaders. Some can be great directors. Some can be great executive directors. Some can be great operators. Some can be great CEOs. There are different levels. And as we see new team members come in, we start giving them small increments of responsibility. We see how they handle that responsibility, and we give them more. If they're a good steward of what they have, and they can handle it, we keep putting more on them, and we keep rewarding them more. And it's just a process, one step at a time. But it honestly starts with character. In the end, our relationship as a leadership team is built on trust. We must trust each other. We must trust each other's intentions and where we're going. And that trust has been built over working together for years, but it started with finding people of the right character, giving them opportunities, rewarding them along the way, and trying to make them successful. Because if we can make a lot of them, our young people, successful, then in the end, we're successful.
Mark, I was so impressed down there. Last time I was there, you took me around to the stores, and I even had an opportunity to speak to your leadership team, which I really enjoyed. And you've got like 6 brothers and sisters, all of the same family, working down there. You got the whole family down there. I mean, I was so impressed. And what I'm more impressed with, even in that, is that one of them has been with you like 10 or 12 years, and he may have an opportunity to get his own store. Now, I would look at that and go, man, I don't want to lose that guy, but you're encouraging him, you're helping him, you're directing him. You've got an abundance mindset. Talk to us about how you teach that abundance mindset to your team.
The Robertson family has been a huge and special part of my organization for years. We've had, I think 5 or 6 of them work for me through the years, and currently we've got 4 that work for us, and they're a huge blessing. Josh is the one we're talking about here, though, that has the opportunity potentially with Chick-fil-A. Matter of fact, he has an interview tomorrow where he's deep in the interview process, and they're coming to my stores to spend a time with him. I'm going to stay out of the way. He's going to be me for the day, walk him around, show him the organization, show him what he's been able to accomplish, and hopefully he'll have his opportunity to move on. It's going to be a big loss for me. I mean, this guy's been leading my organization and giving me lots of freedom for 5 years. But this is what makes, I think, what makes for the trusting relationship to be lived out is that they trust I'm going to do what is best for them. Now they also know I have to do what's best for the business, and that's always going to be a
Sure.
potential point of conflict. Like how do you as the owner do what's best for the business
Mm.
and do what's best for other people? And that's a great conversation there because that's where it gets down and dirty. But the more that you can align the priorities, the goals, and dreams of your team with yourself, the better you're going to be. Someone once said, tie your front line to the bottom line. And I use the analogy of how can I take my top leaders and make sure that in the game of tug of war, we're on the same side of the ditch, pulling against the competition or some kind of challenge that we have. But we never want to develop a situation where we're on opposite sides of the ditch from one another. So the biggest thing is how do I keep aligning to the fact that my leaders have their own personal lives, their dreams, and their goals, and I need to support them, whether it be starting a real estate business or trying to get their own store with Chick-fil-A or go back to college. We provide free education now for all of our employees at my stores. And I've got them now lining up to go back to college. And one of them's getting their master's degree. One of them's getting, several getting their bachelor's. And I'm blessed to be able to do that and thankful that we can help, provide the opportunity for them to get better in the end. And that's how we stay aligned, and that's how we make sure we're on the same side of the ditch.
Mark, I won't get too much in the details, but I've watched you from afar and I've watched you up close. The generosity that you have and the way you take care of that team is like family and even better. I've seen from a generosity standpoint your level of help and support and coming to their aid. It's just so admirable. And you can see it in the culture of everything that you do as an individual, everything that your team does. Even when had the opportunity to come and speak and hang out with these guys privately, they were singing your praises to me, not in front of you, but privately. They didn't have to say it in front of you, but they were saying, "Hey, Mr. Mark has taken me from something and really poured into me and helped me." So I want to commend you publicly. What a great job you've done with that. Talk to us about communication a little bit. Some of the challenges that you've experienced along the way, some of the strategies that you use to keep everyone on the same page. How do you communicate?
Yeah, it's a great question. I thought about that as I prepared for this a little bit. And I thought about, as we grow our businesses, whether you're a one-man show or you're a 10-man show or women's show, or you got a big team organization or thousands, whatever, growing to the next level basically takes building out an org chart. And if you're just want to add that first employee, well, I would just recommend that you build your org chart on a board or a sheet of paper and you draw the circles you're going to need for the future and you figure out what the next ones are and how to fund them and what their role is going to be. But as you build out that org chart over time, your org chart is actually going to be your best friend and at the same time your worst enemy. Because as I've developed my org chart over the years, man, it's been such a blessing. It runs my business for me. It provides great a lot of resources and assets of different people in the way they think into the business. Provides me a lifestyle of freedom and flexibility. But at the same time, if we don't align everybody in that org chart, it's going to become a disaster. As a matter of fact, it can turn against you. So communication within the org chart is critical. And of course, to the greater team, especially as well through training, the communications. But, we have I have an executive leadership team with 6 guys plus me. And we're kind of board of directors over both businesses. We meet every Monday for 2 hours. We have an agenda, work through that agenda. And then each of them have direct report responsibilities that they'll meet with their direct report, the ones who directly answer to them each week. And everything is filtered down like that. and that happens on a weekly and monthly basis. And then we have, like quarterly full manager meetings. Sometimes that stretches out to be 6 months. We try to do it quarterly, and then we'll have an overall team meeting about once a year. We've used GroupMe for years. We're moving to an in-house program called Visible. We've used Slack. We've used whatever we can. All the tools out there, we've used them. But we've done videos. We've done some YouTubes. We just do a lot of communication, and everybody has groups that are responsible for to keep that communication going. So.
You've opened your home up too is pretty cool because I've been into the area that y'all hang out and play some cards and have fun. And you got a snack bar over there that looks like the Titan Stadium that you offer all these team members and come. Talk to us a little bit about the value of that personal connection and inviting managers into your home and getting to know them more intimately, because I think that's a huge piece of your communication skills.
Well, years ago, I decided that I was going to get into World Series level tournament poker. So I did. And I'll do that here and there. And I try to go out once a year and play in that. But so I got these guys together and we started playing poker at first. Some of my leaders and some friends, tournament poker. And I wouldn't let them put any money in. And at first it was just for fun, because they were 18, 19 years old. And about 21, 22 years old, I said, all right, now we'll put a little $20 in or something, just to have a little skin in the game, make it fun. And I'd win a lot of times, and I wouldn't take their money. I'd give it back to them. I just felt bad. And finally, when they got a little older, I'm like, I'm tired of this. You guys are going to step up. You're going to take a risk. You're going to put $20 in. You're going to have to earn it. Yeah, you're going to have to win it from me. So they win it from me now. But we've been doing that for about 12 years. About every 2 weeks, we have a game. We have some friends come. It's a real clean game. We got Cokes and chips and that kind of stuff, and play from like 6 to 30 to 10. And we've been doing it for over 10 years. I got 4 or 5, 6 of them, maybe even 7 that have played throughout the years. But those guys have been they're my top leaders in the business, and that has provided a all out of work touch point, and it's just been a social time, a fun time, and we've become friends. Now, that's great and all, but how do you keep your friendships going with the people that you have to hold accountable to run your business properly? And that's really the bigger question. Like, you can be poker friends, but how do you go to work and have to say, hey, there's a problem at work? And it can be done, it can be done, but you've got to be able to separate those. You've got to be able to say, hey, this is a business issue. This pays all of our salaries. This keeps us all our bills paid. This takes care of a lot of us. So we've got to address these issues at work. We had to do that some yesterday and today, actually. And here's the thing: when you have to hold team members accountable, there's people you care about. They're your friends, but you work with them, and you got to put on a different hat a little bit at work. The key is that relationship of trust must be in place, because if there's not trust as the foundation, then there's misalignment, and then there's potentially bad assumptions that are made. And just communicating clearly and trusting that the other person has the best interest of the business in mind, and working off of that. Then you're not working with somebody to say, oh, their heart's not in it, or they're distracted, or they don't care. Don't go down those. If you're going down those roads, there are bigger issues. Then you can just stay focused on, how did this happen? What are we going to do to repair it? How can we avoid it in the future? And it just gets real objective.
And in your communication with your team members, you're a pretty straight shooter, so you're not afraid to say it like it is, and you do with grace and mercy. But that's a really difficult thing to do. You just said you just had to do that like today or yesterday or whatever, upcoming soon, that you've got this separation of not relationship, but friendship, and you got a friendship and a workship, right? Kind of situation going on. How do you practically approach that? Because I know a lot of people, when it comes to conflict, at work, we know somebody's wife, or somebody works for us that knows somebody, and there's like these intertwined relationships. You're right there, spending time together every couple of weeks outside of work, and yet you've got to approach these situations that a lot of people won't approach. So what are the ingredients that make that work for you? You mentioned trust. That's one.
I think you've got to have the right people that you're working with in the first place. Because if they're the right people with the right character, they understand your expectations and they bought into your vision deeply, and you've communicated that to them, and things go wrong in the business, which they do every day in my business. Good grief. 5,000 customers a day, they're going to go wrong. I've got to assume that my leaders are trying to do the right thing. Today, we had an assessment period where we went in and assessed food at my main store. And a guy from the home office came, super, super great guy, my ops lead, Brody, and broke up into four. We did a little research. It was a workshop Chick-fil-A puts on, and they do this with us. That's how they communicate with us. And we went to my main store and we tested food, broke up into three groups. One group went to the dining room and ordered. One group did a mobile carry-out experience, and one group did a drive-through experience. And I watched what happened with the guys, the other group, and when they were waiting on the mobile order, they made the mobile order. It was a carry-out. They stood to the side and waited, and they waited forever. And finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I mean, I'm intense about this stuff, like on the customer service part.
Like undercover boss, man. You got to step in. You got to step in.
I
You
was
can't take it.
undercover. I'm there right in front of them. They knew who it was, but I'm like,
yeah, I know. And
I can't watch it and let it go. It's just I'm too intense around customer service. So, I go up there and I ask the girl in charge, kind of like, hey, what's happening? Why did we wait so long to tell them it was going to be a few more minutes on their food? Like they're waiting forever and they don't know what's going on. She said, I don't know. I just got here. And I said, okay. Then I dove deeper. Who's the one in charge? And I asked her what was going on. And she really didn't have she didn't have an answer. And I could tell that there was a disconnect between my expectations and her expectations. Like when I addressed it with this young manager, so why did we not communicate to this customer they were going to be waiting on fresh food so that they understood what was going on? So just standing there, nobody talking to them. And she said, well, I don't know. I missed it or something. I said, we can't miss that, And so I left it at that. And then I went back later and put my arm on her shoulder and said, look, it's okay. We all miss things, but this is a tweak. You just got to get better, but it looked like she was about to cry. And I backed off and, just left her alone. And I told some other managers we need to follow up with her. But the other young lady who was there, who was a higher up manager, who said, I don't know. I talked to her and I said, that was not the right answer. Ownership in your role, you want to be at a higher level, and I want her to be at a higher level, the other girl. But she said, I don't know what's going on. I just got here. The right answer should have been, Mark, I don't know, but I'll find out. And then she should have dove in. And when she didn't, I dove in. But this young girl don't know me as well because I'm owner and I'm removed, and she don't know me that well, and it scared her. Had the other manager stepped in and taken it and owned it, she could have fixed it and repaired it better than me. And so I had to have the conversation with her later, like, hey, if you want to be at another level, you got to have ownership. You should have said, Mark, I don't know, but I'll find out. And you should have owned that. And that's how you take ownership to the next level. But what this taught me today was we've had some severe staffing challenges. I mean, severe. And we've let our guard down on some of these weekly systems and evaluations that we do to check quality. And because we haven't done that, this young manager, the one that was the younger one who got upset, she's not even used. She thought she was being successful. I thought she was failing. There was a disconnect. When there's that kind of disconnect down in your leadership structure, it's on you. It's on you as the leader because you have not maintained and managed and communicated consistently your set of expectations for them. So we had to go back to the drawing board today to my top leaders and say, what systems have we failed in here? What have we dropped the ball because we've gotten such a staffing challenge? We're all hands on deck. We've left some systems. We got to get back to where we were. And I had to say, this is my fault because I haven't made sure that you guys were still implementing the check systems every week on these quality issues to retrain on a weekly basis. And here we are, and now we're finding it, but we could have found it a lot earlier.
Mark, how often do you do like performance evaluations on the team members?
Our leadership structure, we have an executive team, and they meet with the directors once a month, and the directors run areas of the business. So they actually get a scorecard that they're responsible for, And we meet with them on a weekly basis to help them develop their tactics and do like a gap analysis. And then once a month, we look at, hey, how's this month gone? It's really that kind of evaluation. And then we'll do performance evaluations with other managers like twice a year. And I'm not involved in any of those. The only one I'm involved in is my top executive director.
Mark, what I really like about your system is that you're constantly grooming the ones that you're preparing to put in leadership roles. And like the young lady you just mentioned, that was an opportunity, right? She could own it and then you could work with her. And I love that you just don't go out and promote somebody up and say, okay, now here's the next level. You're gradually doing it. And so that's the reason you haven't had to hire anybody from the outside for 25 years, right? Is because you're constantly grooming them. I think that's a great lesson for all the listeners, is to always be looking for the opportunity to put somebody in a managerial position. So thank you for doing that. We're going to be respectful of your time, but just a couple more questions. We're always trying to up level. And I think about a resource that I've read recently, and I'm going to give a little pitch for it here today because I think of you. It's called Unreasonable Hospitality. It's a book by Will Guidara, where he created the number one restaurant in the world. And he did it with this unreasonable hospitality. And I thought of you when I was reading the book and how exceptional y'all do in that process. So just wanted to throw a word out there for that book. It's a great resource. And before we let you go, though, I wanted to ask you just a couple more questions. We've got to always be feeding ourselves. And you, even here now, 32-year veteran, owner, operator at Chick-Fil-A, you're constantly doing continuing education. You're sharpening your axe all the time. You surround yourself with competent advisors. You're looking for good reads. You want to watch good TED Talks. You want to listen to, podcast interviews. What do you do for continuing education for your team so that you do get that exceptional performance?
Well, we do several video links a year. The Leader Cast and is one we do, and I think that's the one with that's John Maxwell's, right? Um, he does he does that one, and we do one more local one. And we have another guy. He's a John Maxwell coach. Actually, we bring him in. He coaches our leadership team, our management level. We have like executive level, the management level. He coaches our management level on a monthly basis, and a senior leadership level actually. And we bring him in, and then we'll read books together. We read Traction a few years ago. It was very helpful. We share podcasts. In our executive
Good.
team meeting, usually once a month, we'll have development time, and we'll bring a podcast to the group, or we'll bring a book that we all want to read together. And we just kind of consistently look for that stuff. I mean, I don't have an exact system for that. I do. We're all trying to grow and find new information. I'm reading a cool book here, Leading Change by John Cotter.
Oh, yeah.
Been
It's
reading
a
it
good book.
recently.
Yeah.
It's got some cool stuff in it, and just always trying to find kind of what the next new thing. Now, I've read a lot of books through the years, and a lot of them are kind of repetitive. So now I'm kind of watching podcasts and really getting into some podcast, and that's been fun. But I'm not consistent on a plan there. When I say that, we're all moving that way. We expose our team to LeaderCast. We went to see John Maxwell live actually not too long ago, to like 7 or 8 leaders to that. So I just look for these opportunities. This year we're going to take a learning trip. My top 6 guys, we're going to go spend 4 or 5 days away. A few years ago, we did that in New York City. Went and visited some other Chick-fil-A restaurants, talked to their operators, learned from them, and then went and had fun at the same time. And then we do a lot of that cross traveling. We'll load up guys and go to other restaurants and do an evaluation of the performance, whether it be Chick-fil-A or a competitor. We do a lot of that kind of stuff on a regular basis. That happened last week for some of the guys that went and did that. So just kind of consistently having a mindset of learning. We could do better on a system on that one, but we're fully engaged in it. We just need a better system, probably.
Mark, you're like a sponge because I've been around you for 5 years. You're constantly making notes and you're listening, you're writing down books. I've seen your library. You've got a lot of books that you're studying and reading. You're always adding value in these mastermind calls. And so I don't think you need to change one thing. You've got a very, very successful company. You've got a great team and a great business. And
Thank you.
that's the reason Wally and I wanted to have you on today, just to share some of these life experiences and your ability to build teams and offer tremendous customer service. So, Mark, any final comments, anything that I haven't asked you that you think is important related to building team before we let you go?
I want to say one more thing. I said this when I spoke at your live event a few years ago, and Kevin actually referenced it afterwards. But it keeps coming back to me as kind of the mantra for me and what we do in my business. It's that, Lou Holtz said this years ago. I saw him live, and he said that you can accomplish anything that you want in your life, in your organization, in your family, in your business, if enough people care. And I really believe that. And with that being said, then my role as the leader is simple enough. It's just to try to figure out how to get a lot of people caring about what's important to me and my business. So,
Mark, thank you for sharing this time with us today. Man, it's been so valuable, and we certainly appreciate it. Thank you for sharing with our listeners.
thank you guys. Really enjoyed it. Appreciate both of you.
Well, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Mark is such a fabulous guy. You could tell in his persona that he really loves people. He's interested in you doing well. Hopefully, you've taken something from his leadership skills and his ability to cast vision. I know that Mark is on me about fishing. I hope you enjoyed our little riff back and forth about fishing. Mark is a fabulous guy, man. If you ever get an opportunity to meet him, you will absolutely love him. Take some of these tips that he's given you today. Go out there and build your business to a level that you also will have a view from the top.